Hello everyone, and welcome to Cukmekerb's coding class. So, as you probably know, there are a lot of game engines out there. There's Godot, there's Unity, there's Unreal Engine, there's Game Maker, there's a whole bunch of engines. But they're all beaten out by a brand new player I bet you've never heard of. I would like to present Lite as a game engine. So as you can see, I have successfully created Snake in lite-xl, and yes, this plugin does work with plain old Lite if that's what you prefer. And yes, Lite is in fact a game engine, because all you really need to make to have a game engine is functions to render stuff. And Lite has functions to render stuff. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make a game in lite-xl. Now, this isn't going to be a tutorial on how to make Snake, because somebody else could probably explain it better than me, and Snake is a fairly simple game, so you could probably figure it out on your own as well, the way I did. Anyway, I'm not going to be showing you how to make Snake, but I am going to show you the basics of drawing stuff in lite-xl, and Lite in general, I guess, so that you can make your own Lite games for your favorite text editor. And you can do a whole bunch of stuff, like make it draw on top of the dock view if you wanted, but that would be dumb. So I'm not going to. I'm just going to make it its own view, the way I did with this Snake game. Also, I'm not going to be typing any code during this video. I'm just going to be showing it. So if you want the full source code to this game, I will put a link in the description so that you can use it for whatever you like. It's licensed very liberally. And otherwise, I'm just going to be explaining the basics of rendering for games in Lite and lite-xl. So, you probably want to have some familiarity with Lua. So if you don't, I don't know, go watch a Lua tutorial or something. But basically, lite-xl, and by extension Lite, I'm going to keep saying lite-xl because that's what I'm used to saying, because that's what I'm used to using. But all of the things I will say apply to Lite unless I specify otherwise. Anyway, basically it has views, and one of them is the dock view, obviously, but there's also the root view, which has this stuff, and you can define your own custom views with relative ease. There's also the tree view here on the left, and there's a plugin called To Do Tree View, which makes a view with to-dos here, but there aren't any in this repository, so it's blank. Anyway, you can make your own custom views, and the way you do that is using view.extend, or view::extend, I guess, because it's passing self, and you just have to require core.view. Now, you make function, you do local snake view equals view.extend, so effectively it extends view, and then you can do snakeview.new. This super stuff, I'm not sure what it's necessary for because I kind of copied it from other plugins, but they're all doing it, so it's probably important. Then you can define self variables, and so I'm doing all of this for the apple position, the snake, the score, and the game size, which we'll get to later. And all of this is so that each view has its own unique variables. Like if we were defining these variables up here, then every Snake game would be the same and they would all affect each other, which would not be ideal. We want each Snake view to be unique, and that's why we append self here. Now, game size, this game size variable here is saying the size of the viewport, which you can get through self.size, but it's being divided by this configuration variable, snake size, because Snake is a tile-based game. So that means that rather than moving the snake per pixel, which is possible if you want to, but it's way too complicated, you just move it for each tile. In this case, I believe it's 20 pixels. I don't think our units are actually standard, so it's just 20 units wide. Anyway, basically, yeah, right here, inside of the update function, which is a standard function built into every view in lite-xl, we are taking the floor of the regular size divided by our game's scale to get us the tile size. That way, we don't have to manage pixel-based positions. We just manage the X and Y values. And then here in the draw function, which is what every view in Lite and lite-xl have. Obviously, this defines how the function is drawn. So first we draw the background, because stuff that gets drawn last gets drawn on top. So first you draw the background, which will just be the background color, style.background. And then we draw the apple and the snake. So the snake is a loop through the segments, but effectively these are identical except for the color and the fact that this one's in a loop. Anyway, we draw the rectangle by multiplying the position by the size and adding the content offset for each axis. So the content offset is an offset value that you need to offset all of the content in your view from, so that it will actually appear inside the view. Otherwise, it might be invisible, it might show up, but it will show up in the wrong place. So always make sure to take the content offset and add its x and y values to whatever you're drawing. And in my case, I am also multiplying the position by the game's scale, because it's a tile-based game. So rather than the snake moving 1 pixel, it moves 20 pixels. And if your game is not tile-based, you don't necessarily have to have this set up this way. You could just make it move per pixel. Now, there's one other thing, well, there's two other things that you'll need to know when making a game. That is the frame rate and how to get keyboard input. And mouse, I guess, too. Though I'm not dealing with that. Anyway, so as you see here at the beginning of the draw function, we're setting this variable core.redraw equals true. Now, if I'm just comment out this variable and I reload lite-xl and then I open Snake, you'll notice that it stops. When I move the mouse, it moves. When I stop moving the mouse, it stops. This is because lite-xl automatically pauses rendering when nothing has changed and when no input has been made. That way it saves on resources. So you set the variable core.redraw equals true to make sure that it will always redraw the frame. And reopen Snake, you will see that it now redraws on every frame, as it should be. Now there's one other thing. Well, there's two still. The other thing is Snake's frame rate, as you can see, is very low. And that's because it's tile-based, so a lot of games will not suffer from this issue. But Lite, by default, runs at 60 frames per second. And Snake, you probably wouldn't want to run at 60 frames per second, because then it would be way too fast. So I just have a little variable that will only update when it reaches 5. So every 5 frames, the game loop is run. So if your game is doing that, you probably want to do that. You also might want to keep in mind that the frame rate of Lite is actually configurable, so you might want to check what the actual frame rate is and update your game at a regular interval accordingly. Otherwise, you might end up getting issues with frame rate mismatches between yourself and the actual users of your game. And one last thing, keyboard input. So normally when you define keyboard shortcuts in Lite and lite-xl, you first define a command, which can be run from the command palette, and then you map that to a key using the keyboard thing. But the problem with that for a game is that you're probably going to be mapping keys like WASD or the arrow keys, which means that you're going to be taking those keys away from other views, because a key cannot correspond to multiple stuff. So if I'm mapping W to a command, that means that I can't press the W key in any other view in lite-xl. So what that means is that you'll need to override this function. You'll need to override keymap.onKeyPressed and just check what K is, and then call old keymap pressed, so that way you have direct access to the user's input keyboard with no command-based proxy, which just messes everything up. So don't use commands for a game. Finally, if you want to do mouse input, you can use the built-in on-mouse move function for a view, but since this is Snake, I did not do this. Anyways, you'll probably want to check out the source code to this game since it's a fairly basic example of how you can use lite-xl as a game engine, though not that you should. Anyways, I thought this would be interesting. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and sorry that it's been a month since I last uploaded. I was low on ideas. Remember, the sky isn't always blue, but if it's green, watch out, because there's probably a tornado coming.